do still have the front bench standing by, and it sort of has to do with what we were just listening to: Tom Mulcair, Brian Gallant, Shakir Chambers, and Rob Benzie. But we also wanted to bring in the Liberal leadership race because that has sort of taken on a lot of Trump focus as well. And cabinet ministers are now lining up behind each of the two frontrunners, Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney. The latest big name in cabinet is Stephen Gibo, the environment minister, who had this to say about endorsing Mark Carney today.
I'm here to tell you today that I will be offering my support to Mark Carney. I've known Mark for many years. We've worked together on issues of green energy, transition, fighting climate change, and the role of the financial sector in fighting climate change. He has the experience, he has the background, he's navigated crisis when he was at the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, and I know he's the right person to help bring us into the next phase of our work to support Canadians.
So, Brian, I'll start with you. I think there's 7 cabinet ministers now who have endorsed Mark Carney, 4 whom have endorsed Chrystia Freeland. Among, it's Stephen Gibo, it's Melanie Joly on the Carney side. Does that end up mattering at all, particularly in the leadership race?
Yeah, I think it does.
6 for Carney.
My sense for a leadership race is that there are sort of 2 big things that come with cabinet ministers, but even MPs supporting or MLAs, depending on the level, supporting a candidate. Really, first thing, it's a demonstration of momentum. It's a story to tell. If you're getting support and you kind of roll it out in a certain way, if you want to go strong, you roll out as many people as possible at the start. If you want to sort of show momentum as time goes on, you can roll them out in a different way. But I think the second most important thing about a caucus member and a cabinet minister supporting a leadership candidate, probably the most important one, would be the infrastructure that comes with it, the ability that their full-time job is to be an elected official and engage with Canadians, engage with their riding. So they come with a bunch of volunteers, they come with a bunch of contacts that they would have made, some of them as ministers for almost a decade, some of them in politics for longer than that. So it's the infrastructure that's probably the most important. In a contracted leadership race like this, I think the second part is the most important. It is going to be tough for people to put infrastructure together in such a short period. Freeland would have the upper hand there because she obviously would have been informally, maybe formally, for years now, building some infrastructure, at least loosely. Carney would definitely benefit from having as many cabinet and caucus members support him as possible, as anyone would, but even more so for him, given that he needs to build an infrastructure very quickly. So I do think it's very important in this type. It's always important, but in this type of race, I think it's very important for that specific reason.
Do you have a sense, Shakir, at this point, who has more momentum?
It definitely seems like Carney has the most momentum in the leadership race. I mean, just by the number of cabinet ministers he has behind him. I'm just seeing a lot of people push to have Carney. Even just friends that I have who are Liberal friends are much behind Mark Carney. But I think in a certain sense that, cabinet support can be a bit of a drag on him. I think especially when the Conservatives start to tie him to a lot of these ministers, right?
Yeah.
Carney's proposition is that he's an outsider. And I think, the endorsements I saw today, there are at least 2 of them who are responsible for some of the more disastrous records of Justin Trudeau's government, right? Whether it's immigration from Sean Fraser, and we've seen what a mess that is, or whether it's someone like Stephen Gibo. The carbon tax is a massive, massive issue. And he's a guy who's intimately tied to the carbon tax. So I understand it for the purposes of appealing to the base, but I think Mark Carney might see some blowback from some of these endorsements as he moves forward.
Yeah, the Gibo case in particular is kind of twofold, Tom, insofar as it bridges both what Brian said and Shakir said. Both Gibo and Joly, particularly Joly, actually have huge organizational abilities in Quebec, where there is right now no candidate other than Frank Bayless, but none of the frontrunners are from Quebec in the leadership race. At the same time, Shakir is right to point out that everyone's abandoned the carbon tax, which is of course something Gibo continues to stand by.
Well, he started to soften his position yesterday, and then I saw the timing of his announcement. Carney, I put the 2 together because yesterday he was saying, oh, no, there are other things that we could have done. So for him to have gotten there, I think. I will add one thing. I think Brian did a great analysis of the importance of MPs and cabinet ministers. I'll add something, in my view, really simple, is that the people who depend on the new leader to get reelected are moving in much larger numbers towards Carney. And I think that says a lot. And if you look at the total number of MPs and and cabinet ministers, Carney versus Chrystia Freeland, it's more than 2 for 1 so far. So I think that the people who rely on the ability of having somebody to be able to pull them over that finish line in their riding, that says a lot to me.
Benzie, last word to you on this.
I mean, Tom makes a very good point. I mean, these people are mercenaries in their own way. They're looking at who is best to help them save their skin. But I agree with what Shakir said. I think Stephen Gibo is one of those endorsements that it's nice to have if quietly, but I don't think it helps Carney on the broader scheme of trying to distance himself from the carbon tax, distance himself from Justin Trudeau. I think that's a tough one to accept. I understand why he would take it. Melanie Joly is the top endorsement, and everyone's watching to see what Professor Philippe Chapin does. But I think Joly's organization, she would be, I think, the front runner if she were running. So she's just a very, very effective organizer and has a lot of roots in roots in different parts of the country, not just in Quebec, but also here in Ontario. There are people who like her. So I think it's going to be an interesting contest. But Shakir's right. Carney is probably the front runner. But careful what you wish for. You know, if he's your unicorn, I don't know. I think has he been battle tested? His launches, Vassy, you and I talked about his launch in Edmonton was really a snore, and he needs to get a lot better. Spend a lot more time doing what he did on Jon Stewart, and a lot less time pretending he's like the ordinary hockey guy.
A tiny anecdote to conclude our panel. Today at the hairdresser, a woman approached me and said, "I really like Mark Carney, but he's got to get tough like Doug." No joke. That's like Dougie. And actually, she said multiple times. All right, I'll leave it there. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Brian Gallant, Shakir Chambers, Tom Mulcair, and Rob Benzie.